From San Antonio, Texas, home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk, and the World Heritage San Antonio Missions, this is the ExitMap Podcast, hosted by John F. Dini, the exit planning coach. Designed to help advisors who work with business owners, John talks with top professionals in the exit planning field about best practices, marketing tips, and how to be more effective when working with owners. Now, here's John F. Dini.
Welcome to the ExitMap Podcast, hosted by the Exit Planning Coach. That's me. I'm John F. Dini. My guest today is Kelly Finnell. We've had Kelly on before. He is a renowned expert in ESOPs, one of the premier consultants in the country. He spent over 40 years building ESOPs for folks. He speaks about ESOPs. He's big in NCOA. He's known both in this country and others for that. He wrote the ESOP Coach, a book that I read that I found early on extremely educational, and that's how I first learned about Kelly. And I've given the book to many people too. So the ESOP Coach, if you have any interest at all, you should run out to Amazon and get that right away. And we're going to talk today about an interesting topic. I've had a couple of multi-generational family businesses of late, and we've been struggling with a strategy to transfer them. And one of Kelly's people called up and said, Kelly, one of Kelly's speaking topics is ESOPs in family transition. And I said, that's great. Let me get him on the podcast, because if I don't know much about it, I can pretty much assume that a lot of my listeners don't know about it. So Kelly, welcome. Glad to have you. And good to see you again. You look terrific. How are things in Memphis?
It's starting to heat up, but other than that, everything is great. Yeah.
We've been hitting 100 for 2 months in San Antonio, so don't complain.
Unbelievable. Yeah. We're just now getting there in early July.
So, I'm going to have to give the floor to you because I don't even know where to start this conversation. ESOPs in a family business, where would that be appropriate?
One of the classic dilemmas that we see is children that are active in the business and children that are inactive. Mm-hmm. And of course, the inactive children want to maximize the distributions from the company to support their lifestyle. And the active children want to retain as much capital as possible in the business to continue to grow it. So it can present a business dilemma, a family dilemma. It can cause strife among children and parents. And we have found that in the right situation, an ESOP can help alleviate that. And generally what we see, and let's just take an example where we have two children, one of them active in the business, one of them inactive. One of the ways that an ESOP can be used is for the parents' generation to sell 51% of the company to an ESOP. By doing that, they've converted a part of the business to a liquid asset, and they can structure that perhaps by transferring some or all of the stock in the company to the inactive child, or they can use some type of estate and gift tax planning structure that sells to the ESOP. But the goal is to have liquidity for that inactive family member.
Okay. Let me interrupt you with that with a question. In both the cases I know, about that much of the stock is sitting in a trust. Is that the kind of estate planning vehicle you would say could sell to the ESOP?
Yes, a trust or maybe a family limited partnership, some planning entity such as that. It could be a direct gift, but we see that less often. So it could be a direct gift to the child with the child selling and the child getting the proceeds from the sale. If you sell 100% of a company to an ESOP, you usually can finance about 35% of the sales price with bank debt. If you sell a 50% interest or a 51% interest or a 49% interest, then you can finance about 70% of the cost with bank debt. So you can get a very significant amount of cash to that inactive child. And now the child has what he or she needs, so they're not demanding constant distributions from the business. And that would be part of the total plan that would go into place, is that child is out of the business, has no voice or vote in the business, and all of that now is in the hands of the active child. And so the active child now has the ability to continue on in their role in senior company leadership. They might already have been promoted to the role of CEO of the company, so they can have control of the company and over the company's capital. They can retain it now to make investments for future growth. And it just gives a very elegant way to solve that problem. If stock has not already been transferred to that active child, if it's still in the hands of the senior generation, then by having sold 51% to the ESOP, the parents can now gift the 49% interest to the child at a almost nominal business valuation. We all know that if you gift a minority interest, you're going to get a discount for lack of control. But much more importantly, on top of that, the business isn't worth as much after the sale to the ESOP as it was before, because that sale was a leveraged transaction.
Because of the debt, okay.
With the debt. And so the value for gifting purposes is the company's economic value or equity value, which begins with the value of the company on an enterprise basis and adds excess cash and subtracts debt. So you're going to have a big economic discount as a result of the debt being added to the company's books. And then on top of that, you're going to get a discount for lack of control. And so it can be a very effective business planning tool as well as a state and gift tax planning tool.
Neat. Couple of questions that I'm going to pepper you with. Number one is you've used the term that's going to cause the active child to have a conniption fit. Lack of control. No is what I hear,
Well, there are different levels and different places where control come into play. And for estate and gift tax planning purposes, if you don't own at least 51%, then there's a discount for lack of control.
Sure.
But from the perspective of running the company, so that's operational control, which is separate from financial control and control for lack of or discount for lack of marketability or minority interest. Then since the inactive child is still the CEO of the company, they have as much operational control as they did before. So it's almost like having your cake and eating it too. You're entitled to the discount for lack of control. But from an operational perspective, you have the same level of control as you had before.
Right. Well, and again, the fact about ESOPs that you taught me early on, but a lot of people don't know. When we're talking about the difference between ownership and governance, just because the ESOP has 51% of the ownership, it does not necessarily have 51% of the board of directors.
That's exactly right. And so ESOP companies have the same governance structure as other companies. So the shareholders elect a board, and then the board hires, fires, and monitors management. And so if we have a situation where the trustee, who now is the major shareholder, is going to look to senior company leadership to nominate future board members, then you end up with many of the same people on the board after the transaction as you had before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are going to be, the trustee of the ESOP is going to require some independent directors to be on the board.
Right.
But the majority of the directorship is still going to be insiders and family members.
Okay.
And it's important. A lot of our clients, when they hear that the trustee is going to require independent directors, they think that those are directors that the trustee just selects out of thin air. And the reality of it is it works much like electing directors in a public company, where in a public company, you'd have the shareholders would give their proxy to the current board for that board to make decisions. In this, much the same way, in an ESOP company, the trustee, who is the shareholder, is going to accept nominations for the board from the existing board. And so the trustee is not going to pick directors out of thin air. They're going to select directors based on the recommendations from the pre-transaction board.
Okay. Have to take a break now to pay for the podcast.
The fastest way to lose a client is to treat the exit as the finish line. The surest way to keep one? Make what's next part of the plan long before any transaction. ExitMap changes everything and turns next step planning into your strongest retention tool. ExitMap is the only structured discovery system built to be the first step in every advisory relationship. The 5-meeting process helps advisors guide owners through the essentials of successful transition planning, financial readiness, business readiness, and personal readiness, so they gain real clarity about what life looks like after the business. You guide the process by facilitating deeper conversations. They own the plan by discovering their own priorities and defining what success truly looks like. The result? A documented set of goals, a personal vision, and a prioritized action plan. Built by the client, giving them clarity about their future and giving you a roadmap for supporting it. ExitMap. You guide it, they own it. Take a test drive at exitmap.com.
And here we are. This is the ExitMap Podcast with the exit planning coach, John Dini. My guest today is Kelly Finnell, one of the most widely recognized experts in ESOPs. He helps multiple companies, certainly sometimes double figures in a single year he's working with to bring into the ESOP world. Kelly, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn under Kelly Finnell in the ESOP Coach. You can go to our website, which is www.exitfin.com. And we're all over social media. So just put my name in the search engine and you'll be able to find us.
Right. That's Finnell, Finnell.
Correct.
Okay. Now, my question about debt. What if the family, as happens often in third and fourth generation families, the members of the prior generation want out? Their kids are already out. They want to take care of their kids, but they don't necessarily want to load the company down with bank debt. They're willing to hold the note themselves. How does that affect the entire structure and operation?
Yeah, we see that frequently. We see that among our construction and specialty contractor clients. They tend to be very debt averse. our engineering firm clients are conservative by nature and tend to be debt averse. And our clients have not had debt on their balance sheet usually in 20 years. And so the idea of doing a highly leveraged transaction does cause them some concern. And so one of the options is for the family, in this case, the selling shareholder, to finance the transaction themselves. And so that can be done via seller notes, which is simply an IOU issued by the company to the selling shareholders, promising to pay them in the future. And so that might be a 5-year AM or a 10-year AM. And so it can be a very low stress way to finance a transaction, because you're not ever going to have a friendlier lender than the selling shareholders in an ESOP transaction.
Sure. And there's again thinking of estate planning and let's say Gen 3 is the generation running the company and not running the company. Gen 2 in many cases is the generation that is selling out. Now this I'm not as familiar with, but certainly I've heard the financial planners when they present at the conferences talk about avoiding taxation entirely by using trust vehicles as the inheritance vehicle for the ESOP transaction.
There is a section of the Internal Revenue Code that was added to the code in 1984. It's section 1042, and it is a like-kind exchange provision that applies to sales of company stock to an ESOP. So we've got a like-kind exchange provision for real estate. We've got a like-kind exchange provision for life insurance and annuity contracts. Many people know about those like-kind exchange provisions.
Yeah, 1031 in retail, right? That's what most people know. Not retail, in real estate, yeah.
1035 for life insurance and annuity contracts. And then 1042 says that if I sell stock in my C corporation, we'll come back to that, but if I sell stock in my C corporation to an ESOP, and then if I reinvest in qualified replacement properties within a 15-month window that begins 3 months before the sale to the ESOP and ends 12 months after, then I can treat that as a like-kind exchange and not pay tax on the gain on that sale to the ESOP. And so from the perspective of tax planning to avoid the capital gains tax on a sale to an ESOP, most people are referring to Section 1042. Now, most of our clients, of course, are not C Corps. Most people are considering an ESOP or an S or an LLC. If you're an LLC, then you incorporate. If you're an S, then you're eligible to do an ESOP. But if you're an S Corp, you're not eligible for 1042. You have to be back in C Corporation. So it's simply a matter, if that is something that is critical in the planning process, then the company revokes its S election. And now when it sells, it's a C corporation. Of course, they want to get back to S Corp status as soon as possible in many situations. And so they have to wait 5 tax periods, not 5 years, but 5 tax periods, and then they can reelect S.
Okay. Now, I know when you elect an S, and this is a little out of the ESOP discussion, but when you elect an S, you have a 5-year built-in gains tax if you sell where you're taxed at the C Corp level. Is the reverse true? If you go from S back to C, is there a waiting period before that's effective?
I'm not an expert on corporate tax, but I'm virtually certain that there's not, John. You're right, there is in the situation you described. And they always need to have their CPA do an analysis. And we've seen the built-in gain or big tax range anywhere from zero to a significant amount. So before making the decision about 1042, they need to do that analysis or have their accountant do it.
Yeah. Now, I could probably rattle off the Section 230 disclaimer almost by memory. The conversation on this show is not for the purpose of evading taxes. Although Judge Learned Hand said avoiding taxes is just fine.
Yep. The interesting thing about that case is that everybody assumes, since he said there's nothing wrong with minimizing taxes, everyone assumes that the taxpayer won in that case. She actually lost.
Really?
He decided against her. It was a case involving a reorganization of a company. And in order for this particular reorg to work, there had to be a legitimate business purpose. And she argued, it was a woman who owned the stock of this company, and she argued that there was a legitimate business purpose and she wasn't trying to avoid tax. And he said, it's okay to minimize tax, but we do not find that there was a legitimate business purpose in this case.
You're right. Everybody that has quoted that to me, including my CPA who has a poster of him on his wall.
Everybody assumes that the taxpayer won, but she lost.
That's funny. What else should we know about this situation? What special cases have you seen, or exceptionally effective approaches in a family transfer that where?
Well, one of the things that I don't do, and I encourage our clients to have a business coach or a family business coach involved in these kind of situations, because we're experts at helping them navigate the structure and the financial aspect of this. But whenever you're dealing with a second or third or fourth generation family business, there are lots of emotional aspects that need to be dealt with. And so that's the principal hurdle that we've found in working with families in this kind of situation is we can do all of the structure and get the economics of this just right. But there are, in many cases, underlying personal issues that need an expert to be brought in to deal with.
In many cases, I would say, I don't know, what's more than all cases?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And let's see, my last question, I believe, until I come up with another one. We've seen, you and I both know people who have done 100% ESOP and then come back into the ESOP as the CEO of the company and an ESOP participant. And in one case, at least that we were discussing earlier today, it proved quite lucrative to be an ESOP participant. Again, for the a second bite of the apple. Number one, is there any reason for the non-active kids to come back in as employees? Is there any benefit to that? And number two, is it wise?
Well, I think that, there clearly would be an economic benefit for the children to stay involved, but it's kind of contrary to the whole point of this funding strategy. And so I think the answer is yes, there could be benefits for them to continue to be involved, but I think it's kind of contrary to the whole purpose. The purpose is to get them to go away so that the active child can run the business.
Yeah.
And at the same time, without interference from the inactive children, but treating the inactive and the active children equally from a financial perspective.
Now, to have any further participation after the ESOP transaction, they would have to be employees, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned one other thing since we're on this topic. If the selling shareholders are going to elect 1042, then they cannot participate in the ESOP
right
after the transaction. So classic IRS or congressional approach to tax legislation. We want to give you a good deal, the opportunity to do the tax-free reinvestment, but we don't want to give you too much of a good deal. So we're not going to let you go back in as an ESOP participant. But that's the only situation where a selling shareholder cannot also be an ESOP participant. It's only if they elect 1042.
Great. Kelly, as usual, this has been educational. It has been great for me. I always like talking to you because I think I'm always smarter, or at least I think I'm smarter. And once again, Executive Finn.
ExecFin.com.
ExecFin, okay.
Yep.
.com. I don't know. Your link is in my address book, so I just hit it. But great to have you again, and we'll do this again. I like this short topic. We've done ESOPs in general, but these particular applications are a lot of fun.
I agree. It's always great to be with you, John, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Okay, good to see you, Kelly. Thanks a lot.
Okay.